Greetings and welcome. You're tuned into TMH's Daily English News. The headlines today: the Tigray government calls on the Guardian report of forced recruitment, food aid embezzlement, and extortion, baseless allegations. Extreme food insecurity in Tigray leading IDPs to resort to eating wild plants to survive. And the EU called upon Ethiopia to press for tangible human rights progress. As we move on to our main updates, the Tigray government calls the Guardian's report of forced recruitment, food aid embezzlement, and extortion of the people's baseless allegations. The government of Tigray today issued a statement in a response to the Guardian's article published under the title, "It's Death Either Way. Desperate Tigrayans Flee Starvation and Forced Conscription." The newspaper made 3 allegations: that the people are fleeing Tigray to escape forced recruitment, that the government of Tigray is embezzling food aid and refusing to distribute food aid to those in need, and that the government of Tigray forces people to make money and food contributions to the Tigrayan forces. The statement said all of these allegations are just baseless. It added that such meritless allegations do real damage to the people of Tigray by distracting attention from their suffering and the campaign to hold their tormentors accountable as well. The statement noted that the government of Tigray and Tigray's army firmly believe that the forcible recruitment is an insult to the ability of military organizations to fulfill their missions effectively. The government of Tigray said the invaders' genocidal intent and acts have been essential recruitment posters for the Tigrayan forces. It was volunteers motivated and embittered by unimaginable brutalities visited upon the people of Tigray that initially drove them, the invaders, out of the most parts of Tigray, disseminating their vaunted divisions and capturing thousands of their fighters, as well as taking control of their modern weaponry. The statement indicated that the government of Tigray does not have a substantial role in the distribution of aid to the need other than facilitating the works of aid agencies. And again, according to the statement, such baseless allegations repeated by the Abiy Ahmed regime and echoed by its countless propaganda outlets help redirect the international community's gaze away from the devastating consequences of Abiy's regime's cruel policies towards the Tigray population. It also stated that the idea that there's an abundant aid in Tigray and that the government of Tigray is just refusing to distribute the aid and needy has no merit, and pointed to the report's failure to in fact corroborate its claim by evidence of finding the truth from pertinent international aid agencies as well. Tigrayans see Tigray's army as the guarantor of their safety and security. The statement stressed that, adding there's no need for the government of Tigray to compel Tigrayans to support the very entity whose existence they regard as critical to their safety as well as security. The story of Tigrayans escaping hellish conditions in Tigray created by the genocidal invaders only to be tormented by our enemies on their home turf should have been the theme of this article, as they emphasized in this statement. It added, giving the extreme hardship that the resulting existential insecurity that our enemies have engineered across Tigray, it is no surprise that Tigrayans are looking for alternative means to survive, including by making a arduous and dangerous journey to Addis Ababa or elsewhere in Ethiopia. The statement added that presenting their departure from Tigray as evidence of something other than the quest for survival is just wrong. The government of Tigray extended its invitation to independent reporters, media institutions, as well as human rights organizations that wish to examine the realities on the ground to visit Tigray and in fact see for themselves. It also urged the international community to press the Abiy Ahmed regime to lift this devastating blockade and provide journalists, human rights organizations, and aid agencies, among others, complete unfettered access into the Tigray region. In related development in Tigray, extreme food insecurity is leading some IDPs to resort to eating wild plants to survive as well. While the arrival of additional humanitarian supplies into Tigray is expected to address some of these gaps, the scale of response is challenged by the lack of fuel to transport the supplies from Ma'ala to different parts of the region. At least more than 374,000 liters of fuel are needed to distribute more than 42,000 metric tons of relief supplies and around 17 metric tons of staple crop seeds in Tigray within the region. The situation in the northern region of Ethiopia remains generally calm but unpredictable and impacting humanitarian operations as well. In Tigray, some locations in northern parts of the region, including some qabalis in the Rama and Central Zone, Irob and Zalambesa, and Eastern Zone, as well as Western Zone, continue to be inaccessible due to the insecurities as well. Tensions around Shararo and Tigray continue restricting some partners' humanitarian activities, and 3.9 million people in Tigray currently need health services and intervention immediately. Lack of health workers due to non-payment of their salary, family tracing, and reunification alternative care services are also needed in Tigray for 9,330 recorded unaccompanied and separated children, considerably notably the ongoing IDPs return and relocation process as well. Over 70,000 IDPs out of a total 417,000 living in a collective sites in Tigray need water trucking support as well. About 454,000 children are estimated to be malnourished in Tigray in 2022. Out of this, about 116,000 are severely malnourished, and more than 338,000 are moderately malnourished and need treatment as well. About 120,000 pregnant and lactating women are estimated to be malnourished, and provisions of over 111,000 metric tons of fertilizer and improved crop and vegetable seeds, as well as 74,000 liters of pesticides and fungicides are also needed for the major agriculture season in Tigray. And according to OSHA, provisions of veterinary vaccines and drugs to act at least 12 million of livestock and 5,000 metric tons of animal feed is needed within the Tigray region. In related news, OSHA did in fact report that 9 people in Mariam Adigeshti of Tahti Adiabo Warada of Tigray's northern western zone have tested positive for anthrax as well. Human Rights Watch calls on the EU to press Ethiopia for tangible human rights progress. The future of European Union engagement in Ethiopia will be high on the agenda of EU's foreign ministers gathering next Monday in Brussels. This meeting takes place 19 months into an armed conflict originating in the northern Tigray region that has been devastating for the civilian population. And in a letter on the 26th of May to the EU member states, Human Rights Watch called for clear human rights benchmarks to underpin relations with the Ethiopian government. These include ending mass arbitrary detentions, allowing independent monitors access to detainees, the restoration of basic services, and unhindered and safe humanitarian access throughout conflict-affected areas. There has been no meaningful accountability for the war crimes and other serious abuses committed in the Amhara, Tigray, and neighboring Afar regions, and government investigative processes and outcomes just lack transparency, and international investigations continue to be hampered as well. And despite the Ethiopian government's lifting of the state of emergency and allowing a trickling of aid since April, abuses, suffering still remain extremely rife within the region. For nearly a year, the government has maintained an effective siege of Tigray, limiting food, fuel, and other critical supplies while also shutting off complete communication, banking, and electricity. And the lack of drug supplies and services in particular means that people with chronic illnesses, along with survivors of abuse, including wartime sexual violence, do not have the essential care they need. Human Rights Watch in April released a report with Amnesty International documenting an ethnic cleansing campaign against Tigray by officials and security forces from the neighboring Amhara region. While the authorities restricted access to the rights monitors and aid agencies, hundreds and perhaps thousands of Tigrayans are arbitrarily detained, their life in threatening conditions as well. As the world just watches, the EU has taken robust measures against those responsible for war crimes elsewhere in the world. It shouldn't settle for less in the Horn of Africa either, as they stated in this release. Ethiopia's Abiy Ahmed has faced fresh discord as ex-allies have decided to revolt. Since the May humanitarian truce between Ethiopia's conflicting parties, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has faced internal challenges from his one-time supporter in the northern Amhara region. The lull in hostilities has angered some in the Amhara, which has sparred with Tigray for control over adjoining territory for some time now. Some of its leaders argue that the government should in fact have pursued an outright victory, and Abiy is in fact pushing to reassert his rule over parties that oppose his peacemaking process. Strategy towards the Tigrayans, said Mehdi Lebza, a French socialist who researches the Amhara nationalist movement and has witnessed growing resistance to the federal government within the region. Fano has launched a recruitment campaign in northern Ethiopia in recent months. There have been several hits between its fellows and government troops. In February, specifically, the militia struck a detention camp in the Amhara town of Nefas Maucha, where some members were being kept, flashing some fiercest battle. Abiy Ahmed's desire to remain in power is more important to him than anything, even if he will lose his one-time supporters leaders in the northern region of Amhara. Daily News Egypt said Abiy's voyage from beloved of the global local community to the condemnation has been fast, adding that Ethiopian civilians and children who suffer attacks and hunger are the only losers of these struggles between all of these heinous parties looking for power. In the same theme, witnesses say that more than 200 have been killed in Ethiopia in ethnic attacks. And witnesses in Ethiopia said Sunday that more than 200 people, mostly ethnic Amharas, have been killed in an attack in the country's Oromia region and are blaming a rebel group which denies it completely. I have counted 230 bodies. I am afraid that this is the deadliest attack against civilians we have ever seen in our lifetime, said Abdul Saeed Tahir, who's a resident of Gimbi County, and told the Associated Press after barely escaping the attacks on Saturday. Another witness, who gave only his first name, Shambel, over fears for his safety, said the local Amhara community is now desperately seeking to be relocated somewhere else before another round of miskillings and mass killings happen as well. He said ethnic Amhara that settled in the area about 30 years ago in resettlement programs are now being killed like chickens. Both witnesses blamed the Oromo Liberation Army for the attacks. In a statement, the Oromia regional government also blamed the OLA, the armed group attacked responding to the operations launched by federal security forces. An OLA spokesman, Oda Taribi, denied the allegations completely, saying, "The attack you are referring to was committed by the regime's military and local militia as they retreated from their camp in Gimbi following our recent offensive." He said in a message to the AP, indicating that the regime's military and local militia escaped to an area called Tole, where they were attacked and local population destroyed their property as retaliation for the perceived support of the OLA. He also added that OLA fighters had even reached that area when the attacks took place, saying that Ethiopia is currently experiencing a widespread ethnic tension in several regions, most of them over historical grievances and political tensions as well. As we move on to our final update for today, over 3,000 workers at Awasa Industrial Park are facing layoffs. Over 3,000 workers of Best Garment, an Indian company operating inside Awasa Industries, are facing layoffs as the textile manufacturer battles a drastic fall in revenue. The move comes in light of the U.S. government's decision to cut off Ethiopia from enjoying privileges granted under the African Growth and Opportunity Act, also known as AGOA. There was no order following the restriction, with our income barely covering our salary expenses, so our plan is to exit from the park after compensating the employees, said the senior manager of the factory, whose name is withheld upon request. Best is not the only company to take such moves. PVH, who's a corporation, is the first to exit from the park. The producer of brands like Calvin Klein, Speedo, and Tommy Hilfiger, cited the unpredictability of the situation in Ethiopia for its exits. Epic Apparel is also struggling to remain afloat, forcing its layoffs over 1,200 workers. Both Epic and PVH have settled compensation payments for their employees. We expect Best Garment to do the same, said Angasom Gabre Yohannes, president of the Industrial Federation of Textile, Leather, and Garment Workers Trade Union. Best is expected to pay a 3-month gross salary to their employees facing layoffs. Best Garment has also already notified the trade union, Industrial Parks Development Corporation, and authorities in Sidama regional government about these so-called layoffs. A flagship project of the Ethiopian government, the Awasa Industrial Park became operational in 2017 with a target to contribute US dollars 1 billion to the export to the Ethiopian annually, and houses 19 factories, creating job opportunities for over 35,000 people. This figure is 2 times lower than the number of people currently working before Ethiopia's suspension from the AGOA. That concludes our news for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye-bye.